Hello, welcome back to our lectures. Today we'll be talking about the cellular signal, and this will actually be the last module of this lecture, of this class per se. So today we'll be talking about cellular signaling. What are we going to be talking about? We'll be talking about hormones as biochemical messengers, and then we're going to be looking at those things that help the hormones to function, which we call second messengers. But first, we're going to be looking at something very important, particularly in the public health sphere, which is obesity and the role of a type of hormone that helps in doing that. Let's take it off from there immediately. Okay, let's then move on. Obesity. Obesity is a major public health problem in the United States and other parts of the world as well. The world still grapples on how to manage this. So we want to understand what happens in obesity. Of course, in obesity, an individual has this unquenchable hunger to feed, and the moment the person keeps feeding, because of leptin is inhibited, that seems to begin to make the storage of fat in that post tissue to be getting more and more, and that will lead to obesity. So it's a major health problem in the world, not just the United States. So leptin is a protein. We can call it a hormone. It's a hormone. You can call it a hormone, and so that plays a major role in the regulatory mechanism that leads to obesity. Yes, that's exactly what it do. So it basically regulates energy balance. Actually, what it does is to inhibit hunger. It inhibits the hunger test. The test to want to eat more. How does it do its job? That's our interest in biochemistry. Is that it stimulates. What does it do? The actual normal function of leptin is that leptin stimulates the oxidation of fatty acid, which means the breakdown of fatty acid. So if you can easily break down the fatty acid and they will not be stored, that is a good thing. That is what it does. And it also does what again? It also stimulates the uptake of glucose by muscle cells. It makes the muscle cells to uptake glucose and break them down in glycolysis, which is also, so both two ways will not lead to what? The storage of any type of calorie. If you break down fat, you're breaking them down, you're not storing them. If you're breaking down glucose in them, if the cells of the muscle take up this glucose and break them down, they're not being stored, they're not being used in gluconeogenesis. So you find out that these are very, very good ways of maintaining a healthy life. Now, again, what does it do again? It inhibits the messenger RNA for hepatic steroid CoA. The hepatic steroid CoA desaturate is an enzyme that does what? That desaturates steroid CoA when it is synthesized, right? So it desaturates it. Desaturation means it removes the saturation. That's exactly what it means. So an enzyme that adds what? Is an enzyme that adds a double bond to a saturated fatty acid, leading to less lipid synthesis. That's exactly what it does. So inhibit this enzyme. Again, so what it's simply doing at the end of the day, it is reducing lipid synthesis. That is the ultimate goal of leptin, is to reduce the synthesis of fat in the body, particularly in the adipose tissue. Now, it works directly in the nervous system, inhibiting what we call appetite. And the appetite center is located in the hypothalamus of the brain. It's located in the hypothalamus. So it inhibits appetite by inhibiting the specific neuron. The neuron is located in the hypothalamus. That neuron is actually called the arcuate nucleus in the hypothalamus. That is exactly what leptin does. So it does these three things to make sure it prevents the storage of lipids and then prevent obesity. Now, part of also what it does is that it inactivates the first enzyme needed for the synthesis of lipid. Remember, the first thing that happens in the synthesis of lipid, remember, synthesis of lipid takes place in the cytosol. The first thing that happens is that the first enzyme is that acetyl-CoA is converted to what? Malonyl-CoA by the enzyme acetyl-CoA carboxylase. That is the enzyme it inactivates or inhibits. But once you can stop this enzyme if you stop the first reaction from taking place, lipid synthesis is not going to be synthesized because you don't have the malonyl-CoA that continues with the synthesis. So leptin, how does it do this? It stimulates an AMP activated protein kinase. This AMP means adenosine monophosphate activated protein kinase. You know, these protein kinases are a series of those proteins that phosphorylate enzymes and convert them from either active or inactive forms. In the case of ACC, the phosphorylated part of ACC is the inactive form. So therefore, the stimulation of this AMP protein kinase to phosphorylate ACC renders it useless, renders it inactive, and hence reduces the synthesis of protein. Of course, that is the first, oh, that's a big mistake. I wrote first exam. I wonder how I did that. That is the first reaction in the synthesis of fatty acid. So what are we talking about? All right, okay, I can just pull up this a little bit in this. So this is acetyl-CoA. If this is my, let me draw my acetyl-CoA. So this is my acetyl-CoA. If you put your CoA here. Now acetyl-CoA is usually converted to by ACC is the enzyme. And what is happening here is that ACC is simply is a carboxylase, acetyl-CoA carboxylase. It is adding CO2 to this point, to the terminal point of CoA. So you're seeing ACC act on the CO2 is entering, and then the energy for this reaction is provided by the hydrolysis of ATP to ADP plus PI. And then this enzyme functions with biotin. It needs biotin and manganese ion to function, and it forms malonyl-CoA. So this is our malonyl-CoA. See? Okay, it's fine. I'll just make it this OO minus. This is the COO that has been added here. Look at it. It has been added at this by this COO minus, and then you now have what you have here before your CH2, and then you have this, and then you have SCO. So this is malonyl-CoA. This is acetyl-CoA. And this is the first reaction in the synthesis of lipid. So let's now see graphically what is happening here is that, remember, leptin itself, leptin is made in adipose tissue cells and red blood cells that are located in the small intestines, particularly. Now, what it does is that it, like I said again, it inhibits the hunger center or the appetite center in the hypothalamus. That's what it does. It does inhibit the appetite center in the hypothalamus and reduces the sense of wanting to eat. That's one of the functions. Two, it also acts on the muscles. Remember, we said it helps the muscle to do what? To break down or to oxidize fatty acid. And to do what? And to take up glucose. So let's see what is happening here. So this is leptin. Leptin will also stimulate the AMP, adenosine monophosphate protein kinase, will now be activated. So what it does, it stimulates this and activates it to become phosphorylated. So what it does is that it activates AMP and makes it phosphorylated to become adenosine monophosphate protein kinase phosphorylated. This is the active protein kinase. This active protein kinase does what? Now stimulates the phosphorylation of acetyl-CoA carboxylase from the inactive, from acetyl. It now phosphorylates the AMP. Let me start again. AMP protein kinase phosphorylated, which is the active one, now catalyzes the phosphorylation of active ACC. This is the active acetyl-CoA carboxylase to inactive one. So it makes it inactive. At this point, it is inactive. When it is inactive, look at this. This means it can negative here. It cannot catalyze the conversion of acetyl-CoA to malonyl-CoA like what I have here. So if you cannot catalyze the acetyl-CoA, the conversion of acetyl-CoA to malonyl-CoA, there will be enough malonyl-CoA for lipid synthesis, and that will reduce the amount of lipid that will be synthesized in the adipose tissue. So of course, the cytoplasmic fatty acid level will now be small, and even the ones that are small, then what happens again? Leptin will stimulate their breakdown into carbon dioxide and water in beta oxidation. So what does it do? It prevents this ACC from acting, and it also stimulates the breakdown of fat in beta oxidation to release carbon dioxide and water. And this is the mechanism of action of leptin and acetyl-CoA carboxylase with respect to the control of obesity. So let's now quickly get into the main thing we're talking about today, which is the hormones. Hormones are defined as intracellular biochemical messengers that are produced by the ductless, we call them the ductless glands of the endocrine system, the endocrine glands. They make up the endocrine system because they are produced in one point and they function in the other point. Now, these biochemical messengers, these hormones, when they are produced, they are usually produced from one site. Site of production is different from site of action. However, they are transported in that site in the blood vessel. So they are transported from their site of synthesis, site of production, to their site of action by the bloodstream. And there are three classes we're going to be talking about. There are so many ways to classify them, and they could have a lot of variety. But for convenience of this class, we'll classify them into three. The steroid hormones are those that are derived from cholesterol. Good examples are the sex hormones like the estrogens and the androgens. We have the polypeptide hormones, so we can say they are derived from proteins. We call them the protein hormones. Good examples are our insulin and our glucagon. Glucagon and insulin, our common example. We're going to look at their direct mechanism of action at the other part of this module. And the amino acid derivatives are those that are derived from amino acids. They're just modifications of different amino acids. And good examples are what? Epinephrine and norepinephrine. Or you can say adrenaline and noradrenaline. That's what we're going to be seeing. Now look at what happens. So this is a very good animation that tells you how, that shows you a little bit of how hormones are produced and how they are taken to the site of action. Now, inside these small boxes, you have the hormones. Now, when there is an external stimuli, the external stimuli makes them to be released. The moment they are released, they will now flow into the bloodstream. So these colors of this, look at this difference. This is a square, this is a triangle, this is a circle. All this represent the hormone molecules. So the hormone molecules have to travel through this pathway in the bloodstream to get to their target cell. This is the target cell. In the target cell, they don't just enter the target cell. Each of the target cell must have a receptor. Look at them. And they have to bind on their specific receptor. So the receptors are this groove, each of these triangular groove on each of these cells. So the moment they bind on these receptors, they will now begin to elicit their physiological effect. That's exactly how they function. Now, hormones have several important functions in the body, a lot of important and interesting functions in the body. Now, in biology, we're going to be going into details about this, but I'm going to highlight a few of them. Number one, they help maintain homeostasis. Homeostasis simply means maintaining a constant internal environment. A constant internal environment for optimum function. That's what we call homeostasis, particularly is a much more biological term. Now, they also mediate responses to the external environment. They regulate growth and development. They also perform important role in reproduction. Very, very important. So the release of hormones exert control on cells of the target organs. Those organs in which they act on, we call them the target organs. And each hormone has its own particular target organ because the target organ has those receptors on it. Now, hormone again is regulated by feedback, negative feedback we talked about earlier, feedback control, and there are other sophisticated mechanisms that also involve hypothalamus itself in the regulation, which also includes other type of very complex ones that involve like the releasing factors and all the rest of them. So we're going to see how that is done in the next. So in the common feedback inhibition, like I've talked before, an external stimuli stimulates an organ which sends signal to release a hormone from the endocrine gland. Once the hormone is released, it does its job. After finishing its job, there will be a signal again coming from this target organ to say, okay, this job is done, we don't need it again. It goes back to inhibit the gland from producing any more of those hormones. So this is the feedback control in endocrine glands. So we're going to be looking at the generalized control of feedback inhibition in hormones. Now, there are different levels of hormone production. I'm going to show you the different levels. Now, this different level starts from the central nervous system, which sends the signal. Remember, we're talking about cellular signaling. The central nervous system is what sends the signal. The signal goes first to the hypothalamus. Now, the hypothalamus, this is another level. So now, what does the hypothalamus do? The hypothalamus releases what we call the releasing factors. The releasing factors are not through hormones. But there are hormones that will stimulate another gland from releasing a hormone. That's exactly what they do. So it stimulates the release of these releasing factors. Like this is the corticotropin releasing hormone, the thyrotropin releasing hormone, gonadotropin releasing hormone, and then growth. Yeah, this is gonadotropin releasing hormone, and then growth hormone releasing factor. These are all those releasing factors in different levels of production. See, now these hormones will now go and act on the anterior pituitary gland. The anterior pituitary gland will now be stimulated to begin to release these hormones. So this is adrenocorticotropic hormone, this is thyroid stimulating hormone, this is follicle stimulating hormone, this is luteinizing hormone, and then the growth hormone. Now the ACT now will now go and again and stimulate the adrenal cortex to release adrenocortical hormones. It is these adrenocortical hormones that now act on the final target organs. The thyrotropin stimulating hormone will act on thyroid gland to stimulate thyroxine. The thyroxine can now act on the target organs, the muscle and the liver. The follicle stimulating hormone and the luteinizing hormone will stimulate the testes and ovaries. The testes and ovaries releases the sex hormones, the androgens and estrogens, which now does what? Act on what? The sex organs and its accessory. And then the growth hormone, again, will do what? Will go, the growth hormone acts directly on the bones. It doesn't have any other pathway. It doesn't have any other organ it has to stimulate. It goes directly to this. Then, nerve impulses can also act on the posterior pituitary. The posterior pituitary releases two hormones, the vasopressin and the oxytocin. The vasopressin is needed to control the water balance of the body, whereas the oxytocin acts in lactation and uterine contraction, particularly during birth. So this is so now look at what happens. So these target organs can have a feedback control on the anterior pituitary, the anterior and the posterior pituitary regulation. And these ones too, the anterior and posterior pituitary, can also send signal into the hypothalamus as a feedback to also reduce the extent of hormone released when the hormones have done their job. So this is also another type of feedback inhibition in hormonal regulation. And I have a list of tables that lists a few of these hormones for you. I already said a few of them, but you can always go through this in your note and look at them. So the corticotropic releasing hormone is released from the hypothalamus. What does it do? To stimulate the release of adrenocorticotropic hormones. And this hormone, what does it do? Stimulates later the release of what? Adrenocorticoid. So you might want to go through this and look at the functions of this hormone. You need to know at least all these functions of this hormone for your exam. Alright, we'll go to the next thing. Hormone action. Let's talk about hormone action before we finish. That will be the last thing we're going to use to finish. Now, see, the chemical nature of hormone plays an important role in their cell signaling, in their action. Now, there are two ways it can act. A hormone can act on a target cell. Remember, they're acting on the cell. And a cell is made up of what? Remember, every cell has the outer covering, which is what? The cell membrane. The membrane. Now, for a hormone to act, it does two things. It either has to go through the cell membrane to get the receptor inside the cell, or it can bind on a receptor outside the cell. Now, for steroid hormones, they can either pass through the plasma membrane, because they're made up of they're lipids themselves. This is a lipid layer, and the steroids are lipids, so it can really go through. So they can either go through, depending on what type of hormone it is, it can either go through into the plasma membrane and initiate its effect, or it can also bind onto a receptor. A hormone can come and bind onto a receptor to elicit its physiological effect. Or mainly, but however, this is for steroid hormone. For non-steroid hormones like the protein hormones, the amino acid hormones, they have to bind exclusively on receptors to initiate their biological effect. They can't go through because of the nature of the protein and the amino acid. They really go through. They have to bind on what? A receptor outside the cell and initiate its effect inside the cell. That is how this type of hormone function. And we're going to be seeing this with this. So this is hormone action. A steroid hormone can either bind on the receptor, initiating a cytoplasmic response, or it can get inside this and initiate a transcription response, because what they initiate is an effect inside the nucleus. They will lead to what? The initiation of a type of protein to be synthesized. All right. Again, non-steroidal hormone, particularly the protein hormones, or the polypeptide hormones and the amino acid hormones, exclusively have to bind on the membrane receptors to elicit their physiological effect. All right. So steroid hormones. What are the steroid hormones we have? Let's look at them. The steroid hormones we're going to be looking at are the adrenocortical hormones. The adrenocortical hormones affect inflammation and salt and water balance in the body. And they include glucocorticoids. Glucocorticoids affect carbohydrate metabolism, they modulate inflammatory response, and are also involved in reactions of stress. The mineralocorticoid, like the name said, mineralocorticoid, involved in regulation of what? Levels of inorganic ions, like control of sodium and potassium balance. So a good example is like an aldosterone. Aldosterone is a very good example here. Now, the steroid, what about the steroid hormone? The other steroid hormones are like the sex hormones. Remember when we talked about the synthesis of cholesterol? Most of these steroid hormones are derived from cholesterol. And they are just the only sex hormones we have. They are just those steroid hormones. They include the androgens and the estrogens. Good examples are the testosterone. The testosterone is an androgen, and estrogens are like estradiol. And they are the main site of the production of what? The gonad. The main site is what? In the gonad. Or you can say the gonadal glands. That is where they are basically produced. Now, growth hormone. Let's talk about growth hormone a little bit. Growth hormone is interesting because it is a hormone that controls growth, particularly very much active in the young stages of the animal. So overproduction of growth hormone is caused by pituitary tumor. That can be caused by a tumor in the pituitary gland. And if overproduction occurs when the skeleton is still developing, it results to a condition called the gigantism, whereby the individual gets very big and tall. Whereas if the skeleton has stopped growing and there is this overproduction, it could lead to a condition we call acromegaly. In acromegaly, you see the hands and the feet are so enlarged and doesn't actually look proportionate with the rest of the body. Underproduction of growth hormone leads to a condition called dwarfism, whereby the individual doesn't grow to an expected extent. That's what I mean, dwarfism. This condition can be treated if detected early. The individual usually gets an injection of growth hormone before the skeleton reaches maturity. That actually can be cured. All right, and having said this with the growth hormone, we're going to be coming to an end of this lecture. Thank you once again for listening, and bye at this point.